Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the video here. So I wanted to do a sort of recap video. I've never really done a lot of recap videos, but I wanted to do a recap of episode 16 and sort of remind you guys on where we're at here going into episode 17 because that's premiering on October 2nd, which is not even that far away now. If you want more Walking Dead content like this, then make sure to be a subscriber because there's going to be a lot of videos that I'm posting throughout the next week, especially, I guess over the next 2 to 3 months for sure. There's going to be a lot of stuff. Like once The Walking Dead's over, at the end of November, I still will do some stuff on The Walking Dead afterwards, but then a lot of my focus obviously is going to be on like the future of The Walking Dead and all the spin-offs and stuff like that, covering some stuff for The Walking Dead Dead City and places where they're going to be going with The Walking Dead universe, right? Because the name's still living on. Rick is returning next year, right? In a year from now, we're basically going to be sitting here waiting for the Rick show to premiere, which is going to be super exciting. At least I'm assuming it's dropping next October, but yeah, like I said, so much Walking Dead content to come here, so definitely hit subscribe if you do want more content like this. But let's actually get into this episode here. So the intro I watched, there was no changes in the intro for the finale here for part 2. From what I remember anyways, it seemed like for most episodes in part 2, things were basically the same as they were in part 1. Obviously, there was the addition of the helicopter and stuff, but that was added in part 1, right? Or part A. So definitely look out for some changes to the intro starting with episode 17, because I imagine, there's only 8 left. There might be some more callbacks to previous seasons or even like teases to stuff to come after The Walking Dead's over, right? With some stuff with the CRM and with Rick and whatnot. We see a lot of locusts. They're actually playing a huge role in this episode in the sense of it's more, I guess, commentary on this impending doom that's about to come, right? Because, locusts, people back in the day, especially back in the day, don't like them just because of how much it can, hurt crops and all that kind of stuff. And just seeing all of that, Negan actually in this episode is like, wow, if that isn't a sign from the man upstairs, right? Like almost every character in this episode notices them. So they definitely play a role. It's sort of like this, I would say they almost add this like eerie vibe to the episode. We do see Eugene and Max, they finally became a couple because if you remember beforehand, there was some back and forth because Max knew some stuff about Eugene and Eugene was kind of upset about a few things. But in this episode here, in previous episodes, they have talked about stuff, but this episode here, they were like kind of more officially a couple. And now, Max is starting to feel the pressure because she wants to do something about Pamela Milton. She talked with Mercer beforehand and whatnot, and it seems like she has to do something here, but it's a little scary, right? And so Max is kind of unsure. We do see Daryl and Aaron and Gabriel. They're trying to lead the Commonwealth soldiers away from their people, but obviously that's going to be something that proves to be difficult, right? And eventually there's this big showdown, and then, I really love that scene, by the way. I still don't understand it. Like, now that I'm watching it this many months later, I'm watching that scene and I'm like, were the Commonwealth soldiers going to kill Daryl, Gabriel, and Aaron? Or were they planning to kill them? Like, was Daryl and them planning to kill the Commonwealth soldiers? And sort of, they didn't expect what happened. Because if you watch the scene, there's no hint really at the Commonwealth other than they sort of space out a little bit and almost circle them. And then Daryl and them are kind of like, okay, now's the time. But like, again, the way they filmed it, you can see them spacing out a little bit. And maybe Daryl, Aaron, and Gabriel kind of looked at each other because now's the best opportunity because they're all sort of split apart, right? So I don't really understand what happened there. But regardless, that was an awesome showdown. Obviously, this episode was the big episode with Leah, right? Because she was gone for quite a while. We saw in episode 9, that showdown between her and Maggie. And so she's wanted this revenge against Maggie, right? Because Maggie killed all her people, basically took everything from her. And from her point of view, I guess it kind of makes sense. Although there was some stuff that was kind of messed up that the Reapers were doing. So but from Leah's point of view, that's what she wanted, right? So she comes back into the picture. Lance offers her this job. That was the big cliffhanger, I believe, for episode 15. And the job is to infiltrate the hilltop and basically get rid of Maggie, which obviously is something that is going to be very difficult, but that was kind of the exciting thing watching this episode. If you remember in previous episodes, Sebastian led Daryl and Rosita into this house to get a bunch of cash. And so there's a lot of focus on that in this episode where, they learned that Sebastian has done this a lot and has failed and got a lot of people killed in order to get money and stuff, and Connie, before this episode, I believe, discovered a lot of this proof and, works with Rosita, Ezekiel. There's a bunch of people in that room there, and they really want to publish the story on Sebastian Milton. And so we see Max actually get a lot of info on Sebastian just to be able to prove this. And we actually get this pretty intense interaction between the two. And there's actually a question that I have there, at least going into part 3, because Sebastian kind of knew what she was doing, but just let her do it. There was a moment where he could have stopped her, but he didn't. And so I'm hoping that obviously, I mean, it should play a role, but I'm really wanting to see where that goes, because that was interesting. You know, Sebastian just sort of let it happen, like he just wants this revenge on his mom and all that. So that's definitely something to look forward to. I do have to do a Sebastian video before the season starts, because Sebastian is one of those characters that is kind of, you know, he's unpredictable. I mean, he can really be a big villain here in the last 8 episodes, right? So it's going to be exciting to see what actually happens with that character. I also totally forgot that Marco died. Like, Marco is essentially, you know, he's a background character, but I would say he's very, very recognizable. He's been around for quite a while, and I can't believe he died here. Leah killed him. Like, I totally forgot about that. And that's where we see Leah actually attack the hilltop, and there's this big surprise, big showdown happens. And at this point here, Lance has a hard time sort of working with Leah, because she at this point wants to do things on her own. Lance is kind of pissed off because some of his soldiers are dying. And now Leah at this point is just on her own, and now Lance has to go and find her. At this point, Daryl is trying to make it back, but obviously it's really hard. Like, Daryl is trying to find Maggie and stuff, and at the same time, Lance as well is trying to go after them. So there's this big chase, basically, right? Daryl and Lance are trying to get there, but obviously they have different reasons for doing so. And as this is happening, we do see Leah, you know, she's getting closer and closer to Maggie. So there's a lot of tension built here. The music here is really amazing, to be honest. Like, during all of this, it really does build up a lot of that hype, and I totally forgot how great this episode was. It was such a phenomenal episode. Connie and them discover a bunch more stuff about Sebastian, like Max brings all those files over, and they also learn some pretty explosive stuff about Tyler Davis. But they need more proof. There's a lot more stuff there. And so Connie actually says here that, like, we're going to publish this article about Sebastian because we have enough proof for that. But for the stuff regarding Tyler Davis and his disappearance, you know, there's a lot more stuff that we need. We need this key. Like, this key is going to crack this code, and this way it's going to be undeniable to everyone. And so obviously that's something to really look forward to here, because there's a lot of theories that Tyler Davis is being, and not just Tyler Davis, but previous soldiers or just people that the Commonwealth don't want anymore are being sent to the Civic Republic in return for some resources, right? Because there has to be some sort of connection here. The intro has the helicopter, you know, that was introduced this season. The Civic Republic, or the CRM, depending on what you call it, definitely have to play a role here in this season. And I'm expecting this is sort of the tease here. And so I'm excited to see what Connie is going to do here in these last 8 episodes, because I do think she's the key to solving all of this stuff and to learning about Rick's survival. But that's where the story ends there for that part, although there is some stuff afterwards that they do touch on regarding, I mean, I guess the article is published, but we'll talk about that right away. Leah does eventually find Maggie, sort of knocks her out and brings her to this cabin. You know, Lanza is getting super close to them at this point. Daryl as well as getting very close, and they have this really interesting interaction. Leah eventually dies. Daryl kills her, and he doesn't really have too much of a reaction, which I found a little interesting, but I guess they could get into that here in episode 17, but I imagine they're not really going to. I mean, if you look at the situation and what was happening there, you know, it made sense that Daryl wasn't going to have that big of a reaction, because he just kind of had to, he was forced to kill Leah that fast because Maggie was there, right? But I feel like this could have been handled a lot better with Daryl being there with Maggie, and then Daryl being the, you know, just being forced to kill Leah right there. Maybe Daryl's trying to get Leah to calm down, but she won't, and he's forced to kill her. I think they could have added a lot more emotional tension there, which they never did, which kind of sucks, because I do think this was the Dwight death from the comic, which I'm not going to get into really here. Just, if you know his death scene, if you know what happens there in the comic, it was really crazy, and I think this is that version of that, but I think it's a weaker version of that. But afterwards, you know, they can't really react to anything here, and Daryl doesn't really technically have any time to react to the fact that he killed Leah, because the Commonwealth arrived. Lance is literally out there, and, you know, he's right on them, and so Daryl and Maggie are forced to run off, and now the Commonwealth are chasing them, and that's kind of where things end there for that story. I will say, in terms of a timeline, I'm a little mixed up on where things ended off, because we know that Daryl and Maggie in episode 17 are going to be on the run from the Commonwealth, right? But it almost feels like the last scene in this episode where we do see Oceanside sort of, you know, I guess captured by Lance and the Commonwealth, and maybe even wiped out. It seems like Lance is going to be doing that, or he's leaving it up to fate anyways with flipping that coin. Did that stuff happen beforehand, or did that happen after he saw Maggie and Daryl run away? It's kind of hard to say. I do think he probably just left, but I guess in episode 17 we'll know a lot more there, right? Because it's possible that stuff happened beforehand, because Lance was doing a bunch of stuff like when he was out there with Leah, or I guess before he even offered Lee a job, right? Like there was some interesting things that happened there. So maybe that was sort of a flashback. Anyways, Daryl and Maggie run off and the Commonwealth are now chasing them. The story is published about Pamela, so now Pamela is sort of freaking out about it all and wondering what the hell. And then Lance, like I said, takes over the ocean side, and that's sort of where we end off there. And every other community as well, Alexandria, the Hilltop, are taken over by the Commonwealth. And so now our people are just on the run. You know, Daryl and Maggie are on the run. The Commonwealth are after them. Pamela's freaking out about the articles published. And that's where we're at going into episode 17 here. And that's, yeah, you know, watching this episode again, I will say it was definitely a lot better. It was already really good. Like I already really, really liked it, but rewatching it, I fell in love with this episode a lot more, and I'm so excited for 17 now. Based off of some of the shots that we're getting, yeah, they're jumping right into some stuff here. So yeah, bring on The Walking Dead. It's premiering on October 2nd. I'm super, super hyped. So definitely post your thoughts down below. Post your predictions for episode 17. And what did you think about sort of me recapping some of this stuff and giving some thoughts on it? Because I haven't really done these in a while, but it was kind of fun to do this just because it really recapped the story a lot for me. And I think mostly what it did was remind me of that hype and the intensity of where they left off, which can be sort of forgotten throughout the summer months, right? So anyways, like I said, The Walking Dead's returning October 2nd. I'm definitely really excited for that. So post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.